everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today I am here with my March TBR. I did not put up a TBR for February because I've been in kind of a reading slump and honestly any reading was a win. But I'm hoping that March will get much better, and I wanted to go back to theming my reading. Since March is Women's History Month, and Ramadan will be going for most of the month of March, I thought I would pull some books that fit the time of year and highlighted wonderful female and or Muslim writers or characters. So first, since Ramadan will be going for most of the month of March and I believe Eid al-Fitr will fall at the end of it, I decided to pull two books from Muslim Voices from my stack. The first is Once Upon an Eid, which is a collection of short stories all centering around Eid al-Fitr, I believe. There are two Eids, but I believe this one is Eid al-Fitr, from 15 different Muslim authors. They are Randa Abdel Fattah, Sara Al-Fageh, S.K. Ali, Hannah Alkaf, Ashley Franklin, Asma Hussein, Hina Khan, Ruxana Khan, Huda Al-Marashi, Aisha Matu, Candace Montgomery, Aisha Saeed, N.H. Senzai, Jamila Tompkins Bigelow, and G. Willow Wilson. I've read from some of those authors before, but I've never heard of others before, so I'm really excited to discover some new voices in this collection. The second book I pulled is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal, who is a Niqabi author, I believe. And I've heard mixed things about this book. I think it sounds incredibly intriguing. It's a fantasy novel inspired by ancient Arabia, where we follow a young woman who is an assassin, I believe, and a strange ancient magic starts to brew, morals shift and are questioned. It sounds really interesting. I know my friend Jonathan has read this before, and he was slightly disappointed in it, in that he felt that it was too close to an Assassin's Creed storyline. However, I have never played Assassin's Creed, so I might not have the same problem, and I might enjoy it a lot more. Then, in terms of specifically women's stories, I pulled a bunch of books. Again, this is more of a pile of possibilities than a TBR. But some of the books that I think might fit this month are, first off, I Am Madame X by Gioia Di Liberto. And this is the story of the woman, Madame X, who is in the John Singer Sargent portrait. I just found out about her a few years ago through a documentary about makeup through the centuries. Apparently Madame X was modeling here a kind of permanent makeup called enameling. And so what Di Liberto does in this novel is reimagines what her entire life would have been like, both leading up to being in this painting and the fallout once the public were shocked by her appearance in this painting. I also picked up Farewell, My Queen by Chantal Thomas, being the story of two historical women, Marie Antoinette and the woman who read to her, who is now in exile in Vienna after the Revolution, whose name was Madame Agatha Sidonie Laborde. So I've been wanting to read this for absolute ages, so I think this could be a fun read. I also picked up The Power by Naomi Alderman. I read Disobedience by Naomi Alderman a few years ago, and I really enjoyed it. But I know that this book is very different from Disobedience, and I've heard mixed things about it. But with everything the way it is, I thought, you know what? Let's give it a try. From what I know, this is a story in an alternate universe where all women wake up one day and realize that they have the power of electric shock or something along those lines, and how that very quickly changes the power dynamic between genders, whether that be for good or evil. Then I also picked up The King's Mother by Annie Garthwaite, which is the follow-up to the novel. Oh gosh, I can't remember the title now, but it's featuring women in the War of the Roses. And in fact lists them on the back, that there are 4 mothers who all believe their sons have a claim to the crown. There's Cecily Neville, who is the current king's mother. There's Margaret of Anjou, who was Henry VI's wife, who has now been deposed. Elizabeth Woodville, the betrayed wife of Edward IV. And Margaret Beaufort, who is Henry VII's mother. I really loved Cecily. That was the name of the first novel. I really liked Cecily, so I'm really intrigued to see where this one goes, especially considering it looks like she's bringing in multiple perspectives, which I hadn't realized. And then finally, for fiction, I picked up The Wild Rose by Jennifer Donnelly. I have raved about her Rose trilogy this year. This is the last book in that series. So I can't say too much because we do follow characters that we met in books 2 and 1, but there are some very strong women in all of these books, and they are fast-paced, they are gripping, so I'm hoping that this will honor strong women, but also maybe help me with that slumpiness I've been feeling. Also, slightly more context, these are historical romantic dramas set in New York, I believe at this point, between London and New York. And in this book, we are on the eve of World War I. Then in terms of nonfiction, because my nonfiction pile is getting way out of hand, I could pick up Roaring Girls by Holly Kite, which is the story of 3 forgotten feminists in British history. They're described here as the notorious cross-dressing thief Mary Frith, and rebel slave Mary Prince, and then of course the LGBTQ trailblazer Anne Lister. Like I said, I do know a lot about Anne Lister, but I have really not heard of the other 2 women, so I'm very intrigued to hear their stories as well. Or I won a copy of Jane Austen's Bookshelf from Goodreads, and this is by Rebecca Romney. And this is, I believe, her attempt to catalog and deep dive into all of the literary influences that Jane Austen had, all of the books that she would have owned and or read, and how those would have affected her own work, possibly. Specifically, the female writers that she would have had access to. So I'm assuming we're going to hear from women like Charlotte Lennox. I did read The Female Quixote, and Fanny Burney, who I believe that's Fanny Burney's portrait there. But I'm also excited to discover other authors that I maybe haven't heard of or haven't read from yet, and then maybe put them on my Jane Austen July TBR later this year. So those are some of the books that I could pick up in March. Like I said, this is more of a pile of possibilities. I could speed run through all of these books. I could read 2. It really depends, but these are ones I think will fit the month and hopefully fit my mood as well. Let me know down below if you particularly enjoyed any of these books, or if you are extra curious about any of these, and I will try and bump them up my priority list, or if you are doing any themed reading this month. Until next time, be safe, be well, and happy reading. Bye everyone.